I'm going down the road of feeling bad. Oh, I'm going down the road of feeling bad. Oh, I'm going down.
We're back again with the Austin Public Library, and today I'm sitting down with Mollie Tuggle. She's an artist, does mural work, posters. Really glad that she's here doing this with us. Yeah, say hello.
Hello.
First question I have, you were saying that you've been here about 3 years. Why Austin? Why did you pick this place?
I grew up in San Francisco, and it was just starting to get way too expensive with all of the computer media groups moving in, Facebook, Google, all of that. And so it was driving a lot of the artists out. And I had some friends that had moved to Austin, and I would come out here for Austin Psych Fest, and I liked it a lot. And I saw that the music community was really big out here, so I thought there was great opportunities for artists to do artwork for bands.
So what has been your experience here in Austin as an artist compared to the San Francisco experience?
Well, San Francisco is a really small city, so everything's condensed, so I feel like it's really easy to network and meet other people. Here it's pretty spread out, so I feel like a lot of my community is still actually in California, and it's taken a little bit longer to build it up, but I do feel that this is a much more creative city at this point in time.
Cool. So what is the appeal of the gig poster for you?
Music is by far my favorite thing in the entire world. I'm like such a music geek. I spend like all of my time like trying to find out about new old bands that I've never heard of. And growing up in San Francisco, I was obsessed with like the Fillmore gig posters, the old like classic 60s and 70s rock posters that hang up in the Fillmore venue. One of my friends in San Francisco is a really incredible artist named Alan Forbes, and he's pretty much done a poster for every band that is worth listening to. And he lived a few blocks away from where I lived in San Francisco, and he's kind of, in a way, a mentor to me. He's also probably kind of a hero figure to me. I totally look up to him and his career, and he just inspired me to use my I guess talent or my love for art and combine it with my love for music.
Gig posters, I think they tend to be, and I don't know a lot about it, so you can correct anything I say that's incorrect. Please do so. But from what I understand, they're like limited run. They're temporary in one way, where they go up, they come down after the show.
Yeah.
And people collect them for sure, so they can live on in that way.
Yeah.
But what is that nature, that sort of temporary nature and that sort of limited nature of gig posters, what does that allow you to explore artistically that maybe you can't in other art forms?
So for me, whenever I approach a new poster, I listen to the band's music and I listen to their current album. So right now I'm doing a poster for a band called Uncle Lucius, and they just released a new album. So I'm listening to the album right now, and I'm also looking at the venues that the poster is going to be sold at. So I guess it's all a matter of time and like timing. So I think that every poster is very much associated with the show, like with the music that band's producing in that time and where they're playing at that moment. So it's almost like encapsulating that period, that time. Also, because everything's limited, it becomes that whole like collector's thing. There's that fair called Flatstock, where people go and they seek out posters that they never got to purchase. I did posters for a band called Hardworking Americans recently, and they sold out like halfway through their tour. So I got a ton of emails from fans being like, do you have any more? Do you have any more? Do you have any more? And that's kind of what makes it special. There's also, my favorite thing about screen printing is nothing's ever perfect, and there's no way to make every two posters exactly the same. And as you're experimenting and you're like lining things up, initially there's going to be a lot of like kind of figuring out like the alignment and like misprints, and the misprints actually tend to be worth more than the actual run, because there's like one misprint in a run of 250 posters, and it's so awesome, and people love that, and people that love the music will buy that, like go out of their way. I tend to try and hang on to the misprints because I love them too.
No, that's cool. How you mentioned, listening to the music and the band. How much does the venue or even the city, the place or the space, how much of that do you include in a poster?
Well, obviously the info of the show, but to me, it's everything, If I'm doing a poster for Austin Psych Fest, as opposed to if I'm doing a poster for like a folk bluegrass festival, I'm going to think about the people that are going to be there and what aesthetics they might like. And I'm going to think about the time of year that it's happening and the environment. Like if I'm doing a poster in the winter as opposed to summer, I'm going to make the winter one probably with richer colors and the summer one with bright colors. And yeah, the aesthetics and the environment of everything are what influences the creative concept.
You said you think of the people that are going to be there and the kind of music it is and maybe what those people are like that enjoy that music. How do you balance making something for them that they would like versus also just doing things that you like? Because it seems like it kind of, you have to enjoy it, right? to do it the best job that you could do.
Well, thankfully right now I feel pretty blessed that it seems like the people that are asking me to do art they like my art for a reason, and it's usually because we kind of like the same things. So I'm working with people that have similar style to myself, which is great. And I've had a few clients that not to name names, a few clients that maybe aren't in my wheelhouse, but that's part of being creative, is looking at your client and kind of figuring out what would appeal to them.
There's collectors for these sort of things, and people buy these and like to put them up in their house, and it's a really cool and fun thing. What kind of pressure does that put to want to make something cool, whereas maybe in other art that cool factor is not necessarily there, but this is more pop, so there is that element.
Oh, it's like everything. You're your own worst critic. The pressure is pretty much everything, and I'm pretty hard on myself, but that also is what makes you get better. You're your own competition, your own best competition. I feel like every time I do something, I try and get better. Pretty much everything you're saying is exactly how the thought process goes into coming up with an idea. So I try and just make the aesthetics just pretty much a pretty picture that someone would love to look at every day, or something that's visually stimulating or inspiring.
So what are some elements that you find make a successful gig poster? Certain things that just seem to work.
Balance works really well. Everything kind of balancing out. I personally really love patterns. I love floral patterns. I love 60s and 70s psychedelic patterns. But I don't think that there's really a specific thing that makes a poster work. Because no music's the same. No people's styles never the same. I think that it's based on picking something that relates specifically to your client's needs or to the band's music.
So switch gears, you're also involved in murals. What is the appeal of a mural for you?
You're making whatever it is that you're putting it on more beautiful to me, more colorful, more vibrant. You're putting creativity out into the world because people are going to pass by it and see it or stop and take a picture of it. And it's not just graffiti, which I'm not really a fan of graffiti, unless that is actually a painting also, Also, just the size of it appeals to me. Yeah. When you're always doing posters, you're limited to the 20 by 26 or whatever size poster is. So every once in a while, it's really great to see something that you've done just magnified and made larger than you could ever imagine. I love that.
How do you account for the space where it's going to be viewed, how the viewer will be affected, those sort of things? How do you account for that in your work?
Well, usually a client kind of gives you an idea of what they want, because usually murals are going to be on like the side of a building or inside a space. So you kind of have to stay within their guidelines, but I don't personally draw any of the art for the mural until I've looked at the space. So someone approaches you with the space, they give you the measurements of the wall, and then you go out and look at it. Let's say there's like plants growing up the wall, or there's a window in like the building that's going to cut off part of your design. You take all of that into account, and then you go home and you draw out what you're going to be laying down on the wall, with all of those obstacles being avoided in your drawing.
How have you maybe tried to incorporate some of those obstacles, like a window or a pipe or a plant? Have you done things like that?
Oh, yeah. That's probably one of my favorite things to do, actually. Like putting a bird perched on a window when you're doing kind of like a nature scene, or a wave crashing over a plant. I love using the environment in my drawings. I also love hiding things in my drawings. Like if you have a bunch of branches, I love like sticking a little tiny bird somewhere in there, even though there's no birds in the rest of the mural. That's like one of my favorite things to do.
You talked about the size difference going from poster to mural. What other differences are there, that things you can play with or experiment with in one versus the other?
Yeah. Well, actually, they're really similar. There's a thing called trapping when you're doing posters, where you have to like lay your design. You have to have like your design overlapping with the darker color and closing it pretty much. And you do the same thing with murals. But with murals, it's more natural. It's more like painting. So you can. I have a friend named Erin, and she does really beautiful oil color portraits. But so she can go out and do a mural and make them pretty realistic and paint them kind of like she would an oil painting. With posters, you have to they have to be within a limited amount of colors, and they have to be more looked at like kind of in a graphic design sense, more pop art.
What is that process like of collaborating with someone on a mural? Do you actually design together, or are you more going in and painting someone else's design and vice versa?
Well, I haven't really collaborated that much with other artists on a mural yet. I'm planning on doing it for sure. But normally I get outsourced for the design, and then the mural company paints it. And then just recently I've started actually going around with a company called Show Goat Murals and doing the painting also. And it's really fun, because then you're like surrounded by other artists, and you spend like 45 hours in 5 days hanging out together, covered in paint, and painting your artwork onto a wall or somebody else's. And it's just as rewarding to do other people's art too. And sometimes it kind of opens your eyes a little bit to like something that you may not have thought of, but somebody else thought of doing, and that branches you out a little bit when you go to draw something else.
You've mentioned community multiple times in kind of different ways. So what have you seen as far as your specific art community here in Austin? What does it do well? How do you feel supported or edified? Kind of how you kind of mentioned one example just now, but yeah. What are some other ways?
Well, East is great. East brings everyone together, and all the artists and creative folks in Austin get to like show their stuff and work together. I've been really blessed to meet some people that have wanted to like help me kind of get exposure in Austin, work with me with posters, and the music community's been really, really great. They've reached out to me a lot. I kind of wish there were more museums in Austin, though, honestly. There are a lot of museums, but they're also spread out. And I went to Houston last year, and there's like the entire museum district, and San Francisco has the same thing. And I really wish that was here. But it's a great place for like independent artists, I tend to kind of stay in my art studio all the time, and not really. I do most of my work there, so it's hard sometimes to balance the socializing with the working, because when you're working, it's a lot of time that you dedicate to that.
And what could be improved? Like, if you could wave the magic wand, what could be better here in Austin, specifically in your art community?
Oh, in the art community here in Austin? Museums, man. People with money, build us some museums. That'd be amazing. I guess I need to explore it more to come up with a better answer. I'm sorry. I kind of just feel like I just recently kind of got settled here in Austin, so I'm just kind of now exploring that whole world.
What are some of your favorite things and that you've kind of found here? I know you said you haven't explored much, but the little you've done, what have you found that you like?
I love the night music scene. I love the Continental Club. I love the Sahara Lounge. I love Old Blues, so I love that environment. I love all of the paintings. I love the sign painting here in Austin. You have to jump through hoops to like put signage on your building. It's part of like permits and stuff for business owners. So that's why so many places have sign painting on their buildings, and they hire sign painters to paint on the side of their buildings because they don't have to get a permit to do that, but they have to get a permit to like hang a sign. So it's actually kind of one of my favorite things about the aesthetics of Austin is that everything is like painted onto the building, and it's really just business owners trying to save money, but I love it like visually how it all comes together.
Who's here in town, musicians that you would want to make a poster for? Shout them out.
Father John Misty, I really want to make a poster for you. Shaky Graves, I'll make a poster for you. Gary Clark Jr., I really want to make your poster.
Yeah, and come on the podcast too, all you guys. That's cool. So I know you said you walk by a library.
Giggling through that whole thing.
No, it's all good. So you said you walk by a library every day. What's been your experience with libraries just throughout life?
I love them so much. Seriously, as a kid, my mom would pretty much drop me off at the library, and I'd go into like the arts area of the library, and I would just like sit on the floor in the aisle because I had no shame. Yeah. And I would surround myself with like stacks of like visual books because, painter, you're a visual person, and it's probably, where I got most of my inspiration as a kid, for sure. I'm kind of, when you're creative, you live in like an imaginative world, and that's what books are to me. They're like opening doors to like imagine a world. I also really love like documentaries or people's stories, and I love learning about music and bands and past history. So I end up reading a lot of biographies on musicians.
Do you have any music suggestions or book suggestions?
Yes. Dwayne Allman, who's my favorite guitar player, had a band called Cowboy, and he put out the band put out 3 albums, but he actually only is on one of them because he passed away when he was 24. But the band's called Cowboy, and there's an album that he wrote all the songs for called 5'll Get You 10, and that's my favorite album of all time. I love it so much. Also, Link Wray's album from 1971 and Gene Clark's No Other. Those are probably my top 3 favorite albums to listen to if you like folk music. As far as books, I've been reading a lot of Alan Watts lately. I just bought the book Bob Dylan, where and it's the story of him making the record Blood on the Tracks, because I guess he made the entire album and then had to go back in the studio and rewrite it, and it's supposedly the best breakup album of all time. So I just got that book and I'm really excited to read it.
For people who want to learn more about you, see your work, get in touch with you, where can they do that at? Give them the links.
Okay. Definitely just go to my website. It's my name, so it's Mollie, Mollie, Tuggle, Tuggle.com, so mollietuggle.com. And then that will link you to Instagram, Twitter, all of the social media sites that you need, and my email address too. So that's by far the best place to go. You can also buy my posters.
Awesome. Well, that's it. Thanks again to Mollie for coming through. And thanks for listening. Support your Austin Public Library and support local art. All right, see you next time.